And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, May 13th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. I have something else up. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So you got a little bit of a preview of what we're going to start out with, but you'll also see it based on the show segment as well. And we're going to start off the show, talk about the NFC South. I'll continue my rankings of the teams from each division post-NFL draft. So we're going to talk about the NFC South today. Then, in the second part of the show, we'll talk about some speculation that Netflix could be doing a couple of games, broadcasting a couple of games for the NFL in 2024. So we'll get into that as well. Then in the third part of the show, I'll talk about a couple of things with the Atlanta Falcons, where Kirk Cousins is in his recovery from the torn Achilles, as well as the Falcons' optimism for Kyle Pitts, their tight end, and hoping for a big year out of him now with Cousins at quarterback. Then in the fourth part of the show, because this is the first day of the new format, fourth part of the show, we're going to talk about, a couple things, more quarterback stuff as well for the day. We're going to get into Caleb Williams being named the starter officially by the Bears. Which, I think we all knew that was going to happen, but they officially named him the starter. And then we will talk about the Raiders in the final part of the show, the fifth and final part of the show. We'll talk about the Raiders and their thoughts on their quarterback situation with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, because they didn't address the quarterback position in the draft. And they probably would have taken Michael Penix if he fell to them. I think that's kind of what's been floating around, if I'm not mistaken, but because I think they did want Penix, because I remember seeing a headline on that, but yeah, so they ended up taking the best player available in Brock Bowers, but yeah, they're going into the year with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell as their quarterbacks, and we'll see how that plays out, but I will talk about it in the final part of the show. So yeah, first day of the new format with an added segment. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the NFC South post the NFL draft. And I know you saw the graphic that I was including. So I spoiled it a little bit. But yeah, it's not really that big of a deal. It's just, the teams, just to kind of add some, some imaging to the segment here. But yeah, so today is the NFC South. So let's talk about these teams. Now, this is probably one of the weaker divisions in the NFL. And last year, it did come down to, it was competitive. 3 of the 4 teams were in it pretty much the whole year. But the Bucs finished with a 9-8 record last year. And, well, also the Saints did as well, but they ended up missing out because of, tiebreakers, I believe. So yeah, it ended up being the Bucs division. They did almost lose to they should have lost to the Panthers in the final week of the regular season, but they were able to hold on and win the division. And the Falcons, if they had stability at the quarterback position, they probably could have won it themselves. At one point I thought maybe it is going to be the Falcons that are going to win it, but between Taylor Heineke and Desmond Ridder, it wasn't going to happen. So going into this year now, how do I see this division playing out? Well, we're going to start off with the team that I think is going to be ranked last, or I'm going to have them being ranked last, and that is the Carolina Panthers. I still think that they're going to finish in last place this year. Now, they did make improvements through free agency and the draft to try to put Bryce Young in a better situation for 2024. They traded for Deontay Johnson. They addressed the offensive line. They also drafted a receiver. They drafted a running back as well. So they're trying to put Bryce Young in a better situation. And if Bryce Young can make that jump in 2024, that would be great for the Panthers fans, Panthers fan base, the organization, because, I mean, they moved heaven and earth to get this guy in last year's draft, and it was a rough first season. But now, like I said, you addressed the offense, and you're just hoping for the best now, and you're hoping that he could take that next step. And now with a new head coach in place, who did well with Baker Mayfield last year, the offensive he was the offensive coordinator of the Buccaneers at Canales. You're hoping that Bryce Young can have a better year too. But I still look at the other three teams as them being better. So I'm still going to rank them last, but I think they will be better this year. I think you will get a couple more wins out of them. Now, they're probably still not going to finish with a great record, but that's just my opinion. Then we go to the Saints. The Saints are an interesting team because they really didn't do that much in free agency. They had to let go of some guys. Michael Thomas is now not going to be there. Who's there forever? Or, well, I shouldn't say forever, but at one point he was one of the best receivers in the NFL, but injuries caught up to him. So, and the Saints, their cap situation isn't the best. And Derek Carr, and I've said this on previous shows, he finished the season strong. But is that going to carry over into next season? And now I'll kind of go through their draft because I actually really didn't talk about their draft. So they drafted a tackle, Talise Fuaga, with the 14th overall pick. I hope that's how you pronounce it. They did draft one of the best names in the draft, Kool-Aid McKinstry, the cornerback. And there's been some speculation on whether they're going to trade Marshawn Lattimore or not, but as of right now, he's still a Saint. So, but they drafted him. They took Spencer Rattler in the 5th round. So they actually didn't have a 3rd or 4th round pick. I didn't realize that. So they took Spencer Rattler in the 5th round. They took another receiver, Bub Means, in the 5th round. They took Jalen Ford, a linebacker, as well. So they had 3 5th-round picks. Then in the 6th round, they took a defensive tackle, Christian Boyd, and then they took another tackle with their last pick in the 7th round, Josiah Ezrim. I hope that's... again, apologize for the pronunciation. But yeah, so they took 2 tackles, offensive tackles. They took a wide receiver, a quarterback, linebacker, corner, and defensive tackle. So that's what they did in the draft. Free agency, again, nothing really spectacular. I know they signed Chase Young, to add to the defensive line on a 1-year deal. So I think he's actually they signed him while he was still hurt, I believe. I remember there was something about that signing, but yeah, they really haven't done much. So I think they're kind of still going to be around an 8-9 win team. So, but I think with Derek Carr, they're still going to be competitive, but it might not be. And you got guys getting older, on the defense with Cameron Jordan, and on the offensive side, Alvin Kamara's starting to get older too. So, it's the Saints are going to have to go into a rebuild at some point, but we'll see what they do this year. And then talk about the Buccaneers. I got them at 2. Now, they brought back all their guys. They brought back Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Levante David as well. Antoine Winfield Jr. I was like, I'm like, why is the safety escaping my mind right now? But yeah, Antoine Winfield Jr. So yeah, they brought back all their guys. So they're trying to run it back and win this division again. But for me personally, I think with the healthy Kirk Cousins, the Falcons, I'd put them ahead of them. And listen, the Falcons and the Bucs, they did split last year, and that was with Desmond Ridder as the quarterback. So, for me, I'm going to put the Falcons ahead of the Bucs. But the Bucs, I still expect them to be in the mix to win this division. I'm hoping for Baker Mayfield to continue his success from last year, carry it over into 2024. But the division's going to be tougher. It is. And if Derek Carr can continue his success from the end of last year, carry it over into this year, that makes the division tougher. And the Panthers are going to be better. And the Panthers almost beat the Bucs twice. Both those games were close. I know the final game of the regular season was 9-0. Like I said, the Panthers should have maybe beat them before, but yeah, it's going to be a tougher division for the Buccaneers. So, but I think that they are the second best team, even though I'm going to hope that they end up winning the division. And then the Falcons, I put them at 1. I think that with Kirk Cousins, you got stability at the quarterback position. He's coming back from a significant injury, so you do worry about that, but I feel like he's going to be fine, and he's going to put up good numbers. And, they added to the receiving core. You got Rondale Moore and Darnell Mooney. That both of those guys have speed. But, with Kirk Cousins now at quarterback, let's see the kind of impact that they have. And then you got Drake London, Kyle Pitts, who we'll talk about in the next segment. Or actually, no, the third segment. I apologize for that. I think the Falcons are going to, well, of course, and I didn't even mention Tyler Algier and, of course, Bijan Robinson. The offense is good. It's solid. And, I think the defense might be a little bit of an issue, but, I just think for me, with Kirk Cousins, if he's healthy, I think this is the best team in the division. So, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But, yeah, so that's my rankings. I got the Panthers, the Saints, the Buccaneers, and then the Falcons at 1. So let me know what you guys think about those rankings. How would you rank the NFC South? Let me know in the comments. So we're going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about the NFL, or Netflix in talks to stream the Christmas games this year for the NFL. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.